الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. أما بعد، ألا إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. As we continue in this tremendous treatise entitled Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra by the great Imam Abu al-Abbas Taqi-ud-Din Ahmad ibn Abd al-Halim ibn Abd al-Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi al-Numayri al-Mutawaffa sanata 728, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, with the time now 7:11 p.m. Wednesday, August the 3rd, 2022. We're in degrees on the Hijri calendar, where it's currently the 5th of Muharram, this day of evening of Wednesday, Yawm al-Arbi'a, where the year is 1444 after the migration of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we continue this blessed treatise, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwan, we discussed the last paragraph where it said, وَلَوْ كَانَ الْقَوْمُ قَدْ آمَنُوا بِاللَّفْظِ الْمُجَرَّدِ مِنْ غَيْرِ فَهْمٍ لِمَعْنَاهُ عَلَى مَا يَلِيقُ بِاللَّهِ لَمَا قَالُوا الِاسْتِوَاءُ غَيْرُ مَجْهُولٍ وَالْكَيْفُ غَيْرُ مَعْقُولٍ ولما قالوا أمروها كما جاءت بلا كيف، فإن الاستواء حينئذ لا يكون معلوما بل مجهولا بمنزلة حروف المعجم. وأيضا فإنه لا يحتاج إلى نفي علم الكيفية إذا لم يفهم من اللفظ معنى، وإنما يحتاج إلى نفي علم الكيفية إذا أثبتت الصفات. So you'll find that the great Imam goes on to say, he says you'll find that if the affair, وَلَوْ كَانَ الْقَوْمُ, meaning if the people, he's talking about the Salaf. When we talk about the Salaf, we're speaking about who everyone? The Sahaba first. Then after that, the generation that followed them, and the generation that followed them, based upon the authentic hadith that everyone, inshallah, is familiar with. So, Shaykh al-Islam, based upon that understanding, that he's talking to the readers, if you understand that point, that if the people, meaning the Sahaba, if they believe in just a mere wording without any meaning, without any understanding of the meaning in a manner that befits Allah, they would not have said that ascension of Allah is ghayr majhul. They would not have said the known statement, which is the ascension of Allah is known. How Allah did it is not known. Also, they would have not said, meaning amirruha kama ja'at bila kayf. Also, the other statement that we covered from the previous lesson, everyone. The other statement of the Salaf was what, everyone? Amirruha kama ja'at bila kayf. Narrated as it came without looking for how it is, nor asking how it is. Narrated as it came, bila kayf. When we say bila kayf, meaning without seeking how it is, how the characteristic of Allah is, nor asking how the characteristic of Allah is. So notice it says, فَإِنَّ الْإِسْتِوَاءَ حِينَئِذٍ لَا يَكُونُ مَعْلُومًا. He said, for verily, if that was the case, meaning, pay attention to the last part of the statement we just said, without looking for how it is or asking how it is. So listen to the deep understanding of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah here. He said, for verily ascension here, this which was a statement of the Sahaba, or the Tabi'een rather, the Tabi'een, where they attained that understanding from the Sahaba, of course. He said, then the ascension at that point would not be known. Rather, they would be ignorant as if the words were just merely what? Words without any meaning. What is he speaking about? Now he's going to explain it. Now listen. He said, also, فَإِنَّهُ لَا يُحْتَاجُ إِلَى نَفِعِ عِلْمِ الْكَيْفِيَّةِ. It says it is not needed to negate something, meaning to add to the statement. For example, narrate it as it came without looking for how it is or asking how it is. Meaning, what does that necessitate? When the Salaf said that point, what does that mean? It means that they affirm the characteristic and they affirm what? The meaning. So it wasn't just what? A mere characteristic, and then they didn't understand the meanings to them, as we mentioned last class, because it doesn't make any sense. How is it that you mention a word, but you don't either comprehend the meaning, nor do you now admit, or nor do you affirm for a meaning? That doesn't make any sense. For example, as we mentioned last class, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends, dissension. When you hear the word, what comes to your mind? The characteristic of dissension and its meaning, descending. They're saying that the Salaf will what? Mention a word, but they didn't understand the meaning to it. So Shaykh al-Islam is saying here, when they said the statements such as, narrate it as it came, when they say narrate it as it came without looking for how it is, it's a proof that they what? Affirm along with the word is what? Meaning. He says, if that was the case, then they would have not have said. If it was so called, the correct methodology of the Salaf was negation of the characteristics of Allah, as the people who are upon perverted understandings of the religion of Islam are upon, such as the Jahmiyyah and the Asha'ir and the Mu'tazila and the Sha'ir and the Maturidiyya and the likes of them, right everyone? You'll find, especially in these days and times, there are Muslims out there who say these words that you hear, such as the descension of Allah, or the ascension of Allah above the throne, or Allah coming on the day of resurrection, don't affirm for these words any meanings. All you have to do, just entrust it to Allah. You'll find that, especially these days, from the Muslims who say, entrust the meanings to Allah. Entrust it to Allah, even the meanings, everything. What was our position? Our position is what? We entrust the knowledge of the kayfiyah to Allah. But at the same time, we still what? Affirm its meaning. We affirm its meaning. We say that these words what? Have meanings to them. That's the reason why when a Muslim hears the hadith that Allah descends in the third part of the night, when they hear that narration, they act upon it. Because they understand that that narration has a what? Has a meaning to it. So you'll find that the Muslim who wants to take advantage of his or her time, they wake up in the middle of the night or the last part of the night, they raise their hands and make dua. Why do they make dua? Because they understood the narration, because it had what? A meaning to it. It's that simple. Based upon these type of people and these perverted ideologies that they're bringing to the Muslims, it causes confusion. How are you going to say there's a word such as Allah descends in the third last part of the night? Oh, that has no meaning to it. So why am I making dua in the third part of the night then? That's what Shaykh al-Islam is saying here. Why am I acting based upon it? Why am I acting according to it? According to what? Its meaning. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So any Muslim who just embraced Islam and they hear that narration and they want to now put it to practice and implement it, they wake up in the third last part of the night and they make dua to Allah. And they have the belief that the meaning of the hadith is that they believe firmly that their Lord descends to the lowest heaven in a manner that befits Him in order for me to attain that virtue, which is Allah answering my supplication in that time. Simple. But you'll find that the people of innovations from the Muslims, that they make these affairs complicated. Make it in a manner that if a Muslim was to hear it, it would cause them doubt and it would cause them what? Confusion. Saying, no, that has no meaning to it. Huh? Okay. So a Muslim now that he's trying to learn his aqidah and he's trying to implement it and take advantage of these merits and these different virtues that Allah has set for us to take advantage of every night, then these matters, they made it complicated to the point where they made confusion to say, oh, that's not what it means. Allah doesn't descend, something else descends in its place, such as His angels or such as His commands. This is confusing in the mind of a Muslim when they hear this. So that hadith, when the Messenger of Allah said it's Allah Himself that descends, it doesn't mean that. that, it means something else? Yes. Okay, that's confusing in the minds of any Muslim when they hear that. So that's what Shaykh al-Islam is saying here. He's saying that the Salaf, when they said the statement, أَمِرُّهَا كَمَا جَاءَتْ بِلَا كَيْفٍ, narrated as it came without looking for how it is or asking how it is. When they said the statement asking how it is, without asking how it is or looking for how it is, it's a what? It's more clarity to show that they what? Affirm what? They affirm what, everyone? The meanings to these narrations. Now look what Shaykh al-Islam says. فَverily فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى نَفِي عِلْمِ الْكَيْفِيَّةِ إِذَا لَمْ يُفْهَمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَعْنًى. He said, when they made the statement, narrated as it came without looking for how it is or asking how it is, he said, if that was their position, that they negated the meanings to these characteristics and names of Allah, if that was their position, he said, then they wouldn't need to mention the statements such as what? Narrated as it came without looking for how it is. Because if their position was just to negate the attribute, negate the characteristic, and negate its meaning, why would they say that without any meaning or without any what? How it is, without looking for how it is. So that's what he's saying here. That doesn't make any sense. That's contradictory in the statement. So that's the reason why he's saying that based upon them saying this statement, clearly affirms that they what? That they affirm the characteristic, they affirm the name, the characteristic, and also what? Its meaning. So, do not listen to those Muslims out there that are upon deviation that say, for example, no, entrust it all to Allah, even the meaning. That's absolute nonsense. And any Muslim that hears that and they implement it in their actions, it will cause major confusion. It will cause a lot of confusion in his mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ascended above the throne. No, that's not. Allah didn't ascend. No, rather negate that. Negate it altogether. So where's Allah then? If Allah said he's above the throne, then where is he? He's in a place without a place. As I've heard this nonsense. I've heard some Muslims say that. He exists in a place without a place. That's a statement that's contradictory and confusing. Or they'll say, just negate it altogether. He's either everywhere. That's another one I've heard. He's everywhere. Which is also contradictory. Because even if you say he's in the creation or within everywhere, you still affirm there's a place for it. So the throne became empty. Because Allah clearly said that he's where? Above the throne. It says it clearly in all the texts. So all these statements are all what? Contradictory, and they're all what? Confusing. And the ultimate result of it is what? Doubt. That's the reason why we warn the Muslims day and night to stay away from these type of what? These type of beliefs and convictions that will cause doubt in you, which could be a reason for your destruction. When we say destruction, meaning you go astray. Or you'll die in a state where you have some doubt concerning Allah, which is very dangerous. You'll die in a state having doubt. That is worse than any fitna out there. Worse than losing your children, worse than losing your property, worse than losing your home, worse than losing your wealth, worse than losing your car, worse than anything that you adore or has some type of value worldly. The fact that you die in the state where you have doubt concerning Allah is the utmost of what danger. So these affairs, as we said, let's go back to the book. وَأَيْضًا فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَحْتَاجُ. We already covered that. Let's go to it. وَأَيْضًا فَإِنَّ مَنْ يَنْفِي الصِّفَاتِ الْخَبَرِيَّةِ. This is also important. He said also, فإن من ينفي الصفات الخبرية أو الصفات المطلقة لا يحتاج أن يقول بلا كيف. He's saying again. فمن قال إن الله سبحانه ليس على العرش لا يحتاج أن يقول بلا كيف. He just reiterated. فلو كان من مذهب السلف نفي الصفات في نفس الأمر لما قالوا بلا كيف. He's emphasizing what we just said. He said, for also whoever negates the characteristics that have been informed through revelation, or the characteristics in all cases, he would not need to say in his statement if he negated the characteristics without looking for how it is. If you negate it, khalas, it's negated. And if you entrust the meanings to Allah, you entrusted it, khalas. If that was the case that the Sahaba were upon, this type of what? Nonsense. Why would they say establish the name characteristic without looking for how it is? They would just, if their position was to just entrusted, and negated, they would not say this, nor this would be their understanding at all. So that's the reason why he's saying this. All of this is what? Contradictive. Which is a clear indication that the Salaf what? Did affirm its meanings and its names and the characteristics. So that's the three things that they affirm. They affirm the name, the characteristic, and the meaning. When they hear the word Alim of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, him being Alim, they affirm for Allah knowledge. They affirm for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the name, which is Alim, and they affirm at the same time that it has a meaning to it. That He's all what? Knowledgeable. They don't say, for example, Allah is all knowledgeable without any knowledge, or He's all knowledgeable without any meaning to it. All these affairs, like we said, in the minds of someone is absolutely what? Confusing. And the ultimate, like we said, goal of these matters is what everyone? Doubt concerning Allah. Or the ultimate goal is absolute atheism, negation of Allah's existence. Fine. So then he says, verily Allah is not above the arsh. He said that they say that verily Allah is not above the throne. And if a person say Allah is not above the throne, they would not have to say, look, narrate it as it came without looking for how it is. If that was the so-called position of the Salaf, and as far as them saying that the true position of the Salaf, as they say, meaning the Muslims who are part of deviation, that their position was to negate the characteristics of Allah. If that was the case, like we said, none of them would have mentioned this statement from their statements, which is known, look or establish the narration in the name, and do it in a manner without looking for how it is. Right. So let's keep going. So in regards to what we said, listen to what Imam Malik had said in these statements that are from the statements of the Salaf, from Imam Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik al-Usbahi, the great Imam. He said, you'll find that Imam Malik was very stern with the individual that asked him that one question. He said, what would you think if he would have heard today the statements that we hear? You'll find that to let you know the severity of these statements concerning Allah and what some of the Muslims these days say, that you'll find that the great Imam Abdullah bin Mubarak, rahimahullah, he said a very profound statement. What did he say? He said that he said we can narrate the statements and based upon what Allah mentioned in the Quran, of course. He says, فَإِنَّنَا نَحْكِي أَقْوَالَ الْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصَارَى. We will bring the statements of the Jews and the Christians, based upon what Allah says in the Quran, what they say about it. And we will refute it. He said, however, we were shy to bring the statements of the people of innovation. We were shy to bring their statements due to the severe evil of what they contain. He said to let you know how evil their statements was to the point where they brought atrocities and evil that were worse than what the Jews and the Christians said up. Worse about what they said about Allah was tremendous. The statements of what the people, philosophy, Greek philosophy, and those Muslims have been affected by it, brought statements that were worse. He said to the point we were shy to mention the statements of the people of innovations from the Muslims who innovated in this regard. He said we were shy. What person would say, how are they shy from what statement? Now listen to the statement. He said, for example, in these days, Imam Malik said what he said in regards to that individual. Look to how stern he was. He said, what if he would have heard what some of the things we heard today, or what we hear today? He said he will probably be more astonished and more surprised. He said, for verily during his time, وَلَمْ يُؤَلَّفْ فِي وَقْتِهِمْ كِتَابْ يَقُولُ لَيْسَ اللَّهُ فَوْقَ الْعَرْشِ وَلَا تَحْتَ الْعَرْشِ وَلَا عَنْ يَمِينِ وَلَا عَنْ يَسَارِ وَلَمْ يُؤَلَّفْ كِتَابٌ كَهَذَا. He said there wasn't any book during the time, or the time of the Salaf, where you'll find that in this book it said Allah is not above the throne. And Allah is not under the throne. Nor is He to the right of it, nor is He to the left of it. He said there wasn't any type of book like this, in which was authored after the time of the Imam Malik and after the time of the great Salaf. He said to the point where these affairs were established in the curriculum of the Muslim students and upon the youthful students from the Muslims in their institutes and in their schools. that they would study these type of disbelief statements. He says, where student, it would be repeated upon him to memorize and contemplate and have it established in his heart this evil statement: Allah is not above the throne, nor is he under it, nor is he to the right of it, nor is he to the left of it. Allah is not above, nor is he under. Where is Allah? He said, for verily right now, if you was to ask someone, describe to me something that doesn't exist in detail. Tell me, describe it. What would you say? It's not above, it's not below, it's not to the right, nor is it what? To the left. That is an accurate description of something that does not exist. That's the reason why when you hear this statement, it necessitates what? Atheism. That's the danger of the type of statements that these people what? Utter. And you can imagine that there are Muslims out there have adopted statements of atheism, even though they say they're Muslim. Not even realizing it. When you say Allah is not above, Allah is not below, Allah is not to the side, that's a statement of the atheist. Rather, you're given an accurate description of something that does not exist. That's the reason why the dangers of these books are what? Tremendous upon the Muslims. And if the Salaf was to hear these statements, even though Imam Malik heard that one statement, that Allah, how did he descend above the throne, or how does he ascend, or how is his ascension? You seen how Imam Malik was stern with that individual. What would you think he would have said if he heard this statement? He said, for verily, in the great Imam Malik, the great Muhammad Malik Jami, he said, أُلِّفَتْ بَعْتَ مَالِك كُتُب كهذه الكتب والكتاب الذي نشير إليه كنا نتحدث عنه غيابيا وهو غير موجود في منطقتنا فإذا هو الآن في المكاتب يباع ويشترى. He said these books that contain these type of statements, it was authored after the time after the Imam Malik, just like these books. We're going to mention the title of it. In the book in what we hinted or we alluded to moments ago, in which we have spoke about, or we used to speak about, he said, in our time, they're not exactly in our area and in our place. He's not speaking about America. America's here. The books are here in our area and in our place and in our city. He said, for verily you'll find that these books that contain these statements are now being sold in bookstores. And if you want to say modern day times, it's online, easily and accessible for people to have access to these evil, wicked statements that could cause destruction to their, or be something detrimental upon their soul and upon their religion in this world wasn't a hereafter. Dying in a state where they have doubt concerning Allah, or having an atheistic statement tied around their heart at the moment when they die, which is extremely dangerous. Have a statement of atheism and you believe it firmly and you die upon that, is at the utmost of what? Danger. For verily these books are now easily accessible. The students, they buy it, they purchase it, and they do not know what is in it of the poison that is creeped inside of it. Except you'll find that the book that contains these type of evil statements, such as the text called As-Sanusiyyah. As-Sanusiyyah, which was explained by Ibrahim al-Bayjuri, which is called Hashiyatuhu ala As-Sanusiyyah. His commentary was footnotes upon the book called As-Sanusiyyah. This book, As-Sanusiyyah, contains these type of statements, such as Allah is not above, Allah is not below, Allah is not to the right, nor is it to the left. And he has another book called Hashiyatul Bayjuri ala Jawharat al-Tawheed. The footnotes of Bayjuri upon the book of what they call Jawharat al-Tawheed. And notice the statement, they titled it with the word Jawharat al-Tawheed. So these books now, it's exactly. So dakhalat kutub, you find that they're present. They're present today. And that you'll find the statement of the message of Allah is what? Being actualized in front of our eyes, which is what, everyone? ما من عام إلا والذي بعته إيش شر من حتى إيش تلقوا ربكم. There's not a year that passes except the one after it is worse than the one before. And it will be like this until what, everyone? Until you meet your Lord. You'll find that he mentions, it says, years ago, it would have not came to the mind of a Muslim, these type of statements, nor of them purchasing these type of books. But now you'll find that in the hands of the students, you'll find that they're easily acceptable, and they're also in our areas in which we live. And they're also what? They used to be in those other specific areas. Now, like we said, all the affairs have become equal. So that's what you'll find, like we just mentioned and said, where you'll find Imam Malik was very stern upon the individual who said, just asking how Allah ascends. Just one statement like that, and he was what? Severe upon him. What we wanted to take time out, everyone, when it says at the end of the narration, what do you find that it says? وَمَا أَضَاكَ إِلَّا مُبْتَدِعًا فَأُمِرَ بِهِ أَن يَخْرُجْ or يُخْرَجْ. He said, I do not see you except an innovator, and he was commanded to what? Have him removed from the masjid. You'll find that the A'imma explained this particular part. He said, رَأَى مِنَ الْمَصَّحَةِ أَن يُخْرَجْ مِنْ مَجْلِسِهِ لِأَلَّا يُؤَثِّرَ فِي الْآخَرِينَ وهذه تختلف باختلاف وجهات النظر وباختلاف الأماكن والأزمنة. قد تكون المصلحة إبقاءه في المجلس ليسمع بيان ذلك إذا كان لا يخاف عليه أن يؤثر في الموجودين يعني في الحاضرين ويرجى أن يسمع فيرجع فيتوب. قد تكون المصلحة في إبقائه في المجلس وقد تكون المصلحة في إخراجه وطرده وذلك يختلف باختلاف المقامات. He said, this is from where you'll find that the great Imam Malik, that he's seen that the maslahah, that the benefit at that particular time is that he be removed from the sitting in order for him not to affect others. He said, for this affair of having one removed from the masjid or from the places of learning, this is all different according to the what? The circumstances and the outlook of the what? The person. Especially the what? The scholar who's dictating the knowledge of what he sees befitting for that particular time. He said it's different according to the different places and the different times. He said it could be the opposite, where the benefit could be for him to remain in the majlis in order for him to hear clarification. He says if the affair of the fear of him affecting others have been removed, in hope that he will hear and listen and he will what? Return back to the truth, and maybe it will be a means to inspire him to make repentance. So the affair can necessitate that he could stay. And in another time, the affair can necessitate that he be removed, such as Imam Malik did. He said for the affairs according to the what? The circumstance of the individual and who he is and what? How he is at that particular time and whatever he wants, that particular place. So here, sometimes the maslahah or the benefit can necessitate them being what? Removed. And certain other times the maslahah can necessitate that according to this how, that he can what? Stay. Maybe it might be a person who's very ignorant. Maybe it's a person that's what? Seeking knowledge. Maybe that person has been affected by the people bid'ah. This is the first time he ever heard this. Like we said, the circumstances are different from one person to the next. Is it clear, everyone? So I want everyone to understand this athar of Imam Malik clearly. So no one would necessitate that someone come to the masjid and they ask a question like this one and then what? Say, have it removed from the masjid. The person could have been what? Someone who's truly seeking ilm. Someone who might not what? Particularly know. But it could necessitate that someone that you know for years based upon your experience, that he's an individual that you know for sure he knows what he's saying. And he's not saying it out of ignorance. And it would necessitate you be stern with him to have it removed, such as what the great Imam Malik did. Is it clear, everyone? Jane. Then you'll find, like we said, let's keep going. Let's go down to the statement of Imam Shaykh al-Islam. He said, لا يحتاج أن يقول بلا كيف. It will not be needed for the statement, affirm it how it came, without looking for how it is or asking how it is. He said, if that was the case, that the Salaf used to negate these characteristics, they would have not have said the statement bila kayf, without looking or asking how it is. Now listen, al-sifat al-khabariyah. This book that we're studying right now is all in regards to the names and attributes of Allah that's been affirmed through the revelation. Those narrations or those characteristics that have been affirmed through revelation are called al-sifat al-khabariyah. Right, everyone? We could call them as-sifat al-khabariyah, meaning we will have no knowledge that Allah has certain characteristics unless Allah informed us through the revelation. We will not have known that our Lord laughs unless the Messenger of Allah informed us through revelation. We will not have known that Allah ascends or descends, or that Allah has a face, or that Allah has a what? Has a shin, He has a foot, and the likes of those characteristics which are called as-sifat al-khabariyah. Is it clear, everyone? طيب. So, to hear this statement, that the Salaf, that they had categorized these characteristics, excuse me everyone, that they understood these characteristics, and then the people of the ulama later on came and categorized. I'm sorry, I'm going to clarify that. They categorized it so the people could understand it clearly, which came later. But it was just for clarification. However, these categorization of the characteristics of Allah were not needed until the effect of Greek philosophy became widespread and it started to affect the Muslims, which was called the ilm al-kalam, which was called the knowledge of rhetoric. Knowledge of rhetoric was extracted from Greek philosophers, because we know Greek philosophy glorified what, everyone? The intellect over what? Revelation. The Muslims became affected and they gave that as a fundamental principle over revelation. When the Muslims became affected by it and the terminologies that were adopted from Greek philosophy, and they started to address the people, and the people became affected, then it became binding upon the Salaf to come with affairs to defend what was correct. So you'll find that they had categorized later on, we're talking about later on, where they had categorized the characteristics of Allah one time into characteristics that were called khabariyah. And there are other characteristics that are not khabariyah. When we say khabariyah, we mean there are characteristics that are absolute khabari. What is absolute khabari? Meaning, characteristics of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala that there's no way that we had no way of knowing except from pure knowledge, pure what? Revelation. Except through pure revelation. I gave an example of that a couple of minutes ago. How would we have known that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala laughs? No one would know. No one would have known, nor can the human mind affirm that, except through pure revelation that was conveyed. طيب. What I wanted to say is, all the characteristics of Allah, all of them, I'm generalizing, all of them in their origin are khabari. In their origin. Then realize that the characteristics of Allah, they break down. All of them, you have sifat khabariyah mahda. You have characteristics that are absolute pure revelation. And on the other side, you have characteristics of Allah that's pure revelation, but at the same time, they can be affirmed by the aql, even though it's not the origin. I'll say it one more time. If you want to put in your book, so keep it simple, put in your book, all the characteristics of Allah in this origin are khabari, meaning they were all in this origin revelation. In its origin, that's the asl. Then you put two lines, going two separate ways, one to the right, one to the left. You have characteristics of Allah that are what? Sifat khabariyah mahda. Absolute pure characteristics that we have no way of knowing except through revelation. And that the human mind cannot affirm it. Example, the laughter of Allah. That's the first side. The other side. Draw another line on that other side. Characteristics of Allah Ta'ala. That is what? Characteristics that are informed through the revelation. But they can be affirmed by what? By the intellect, even though the intellect is not the origin. You write this down. It's not broken down that way. Well, here, so now let's read it. So everybody understand that point so far? Tight. And I'm going to read it and give you an example. An example such as that, when you look into this existence, so let me give you an example. We gave an example of the other side, which is laughter. All right, what's the example of the other side? The creation of Allah. When you look to the human being, and if you look to the human being, look at his body. The Creator created 2 eyes. 2 eyes, a nose, 2 ears. So that one know by the revelation, of course, which is the origin, but also the mind could clearly see that also what? That this Creator, He creates, He has the ability of creation. And we also affirm at the same time, He has the ability of what? He also has knowledge of what He's creating. Because He gave human being 1, 2 eyes. So He has knowledge of what He's created. 2 feet, 2 eyes, 2 ears. So He has knowledge of what He's created. And 5 fingers on each hand. And He gave a number to it and bounded it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To let you know that what? That He has knowledge of what He's creating. So that the affair of creation is informed through us through the revelation. But at the same time, it can also be what? Be affirmed by the aql, even though the aql is not the origin. But it can be affirmed in that way. Is it clear what I'm saying? Jay. So now let's read it. So let's give a little bit more clarity. طيب. الصفات الخبرية وهي التي نسميها الخبرية المحضة. We already talked about it. I'm just reading English real quick. He said the characteristics that's conveyed through pure revelation, as we mentioned. And then the characteristics, like we said, we can also affirm it, which is the other sides we said, through the intellect, even though it's not the origin. He said, قد يطلقون عليها الصفات العقلية. We could call them what? At the same time, صفات what? خبرية عقلية. So, that other side that we were explaining, والأحسن يقال إنها صفات خبرية وعقلية معا. So the other side we could call it what? Characteristics of Allah, which is khabariya and aqliya together, which is the other category that we talked about. Is it clear? And that other side is not pure revelation. It's not like the other side the other line that we just drew, that we draw. Al-murad biha al-khabariya al-mahda. However, what we're speaking about now is the characteristic that are what? Pure revelation. That the intellect cannot what? Affirm. That's the topic of today. Such as the ascension of Allah. Who would know that our Lord could what? Ascend. And that He created the heavens and the earth within what? 6 days and then ascend above the throne. Who would know that? How? Can the mind affirm it? Can the mind know that? No. This characteristic of the ascension of Allah is pure what? It's pure revelation. We will have no way of knowing that unless Allah informed us through revelation. And if it wasn't for Allah and the message of Allah conveying that, we would not know that our Lord is above the throne. And that even Allah created a throne and that He is above it. And it does not necessitate Him sitting on it. As you'll find that the people of the bid'ah say. That's the reason why they negate it. Just because something is above does not mean that it needs it. Such as, look at the sun. It's above us all the time. Is it reclining on something? No. So that lets you know that Allah creates things that can be above us and not need anything to be above us. What about Allah Himself? If Allah could create something that does not need anything to recline on, even though it's above us all the time, how do you not think that Allah cannot have the same characteristic, if not in the greatest way? Is it clear, everyone? The ijma', the consensus of the salaf, just because Allah is above the throne does not mean He needs it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need anything at all, mutlaqan. Why? Because he has the characteristic of ghina, absolute self-sufficiency and absolute independency of anything and everyone. Allah does not need anything. Just because he's above the throne does not mean he needs it. Allah does not need anything by ijma', by the consensus. That you have to believe that Allah is independent of everything in the heavens and the earth, in anything at all. Is it clear, everyone? Jayyid. He says, in regards to what we're mentioning now, بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَوًا عَلَى عَرْشِهِ لَا سَبِيلَ لِلْعَقْلِ إِدْرَاكَ هَذِهِ الصِّفَةِ. We already mentioned that. الصفات الخبرية كذلك, for example, another example of the category we're speaking about, which is the first one, which is absolute revelation, such as Allah coming on the day of resurrection, Masjid al-Rabb, the Fasl al-Qada, Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah coming on the day of resurrection to what? Judge between the servants, and that Allah will come with angels, ranks upon ranks, and at the same time on the day of resurrection, when Allah commences the what? When he commences the day of resurrection and the accountability of the creation, Allah will still be above the creation. So he will come on the day of resurrection and at the same time still be above the creation. All those affairs, what? As we mentioned and said, we will not know these details unless Allah informed us. Informed us exactly, giving us the description accurately of how the day of resurrection will take place, and that Allah will come on the day of resurrection. That he will come, and when I hear the word coming of Allah on the day of resurrection, those affairs are pure revelation. We will not know that Allah and the affairs and the descriptions of how Allah will come with angels and the affairs pertaining to the throne, and that one of the prophets will be carrying it, from Prophet Musa, carrying one of the qawa'im al-arsh, carrying one of the legs of the throne, or what have you. And the matters of which the Messenger of Allah informed of how the exact details of these affairs taking place, how we would know, we would not know, except through what? Absolute pure revelation. طيب. Then he goes on to say, كلها صفات فعلية خبرية محضة. For example, the descension of Allah every night to the lowest heaven. Which category is that? The first one or the second one? The first one. Jayyid. He says, as for, you can say, now let's go to the first category. Let's go back to it. There are characteristics that are absolute what? Pure revelation, as we said, right? Let's deal with that category and we'll stop here. Then we'll go to the second one tomorrow. The category of khabariyya mahda, or sifat khabariyya mahda. Characteristics that are absolute purely what? Revelation. Such as, those characteristics can be fi'liya, and they can be characteristics that are dhatiyya. They can be characteristics of Allah that are His actions, and they can be characteristics of Allah that from His essence. So, the line which you put, which is absolute pure revelation, put two other lines under it. Put two other lines under it. The first line, those characteristics of pure revelation that are Allah's actions, such as the ascension of Allah, the descension of Allah, Allah coming on the day of resurrection, the Allah's descension in the third last part of the night, and the likes of that. The second line, the characteristics of Allah, that pure revelation, that are from His essence, such as His face, the two hands of Allah, the fingers of Allah. Those characteristics are absolute pure revelation. We will have no knowledge of affirming that Allah has hands and that He has the fingers unless Allah conveyed it to us through absolute revelation. We would not know. When Allah does an action, that's an action that's done from one time to the next. In regards to His essence, that's always with Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Allah, when He descended, He descends at a specific time. The Messenger of Allah informed us, when Allah descends to the lowest heaven, Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us through the authentic sunnah, which is what? The Messenger of Allah gave us a time when Allah does it. When does He do it? The third last part of the night. If that was the case where Allah does it, we would make a dua right now, right? No. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ gave us a time when Allah does it. Meaning, that characteristic, tatajaddad. Meaning, that it happens from one time to the next. Is it clear? And that on the day of resurrection, when Allah comes, it will come and it will happen at a time. When's the time? The day of resurrection. It has not happened yet. It will happen on the day of resurrection. All these affairs make sense. Based upon the ideologies of the people of innovation, the people of the Mu'tazila and the likes of them, they said it already happened. It already happened? That's confusing. Those affairs, what we say, the affairs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does an action from one time to the next, such as the Messenger of Allah said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens and the earth, and that which is between them in 6 days. Then there was a time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Descended above the Arsh. Happened at a time where Allah wanted, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did the action at a specific time. Also, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Musa, the speech, well, when Musa heard the voice of Allah, it was at a specific time. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had called Musa, and he went to Tur al-Ayman, as he came to the side of when that affair, when it had taken place, we could use another example. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa to meet him at the Mount of Sinai, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ قَالَ لَن تَرَانِي ولكن انظر إلى الجبل فإن استقر مكانه فسوف تراني فلما تجلى ربه للجبل جعله دكا وخر موسى صاعقا فلما أفاق قال سبحانك تبت إليك وأنا أول المسلمين قال إن يا موسى إني اصطفيتك على الناس برسالاتي وبكلامي فَخُذْ مَا آتَيْتُكَ وَكُنْ مِنَ الشَّاكِرِينَ. طيب. Notice it says in the ayah, Surah Al-A'raf, Allah Ta'ala says in this book that when Musa came, notice it said when, to the appointed time that we told him to meet us, and your Lord spoke to him. Meaning that action of speech happened at a time when the Lord did it. When did it happen? When the Musa came. Makes sense. He said, oh, my Lord, let me see you. He says, you will not see me, meaning in this world. You're too weak, Musa. You won't be able to stand it. Why? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed Musa why he won't be able to stand it. Because he says, if you look to the mountain, and if it stays in this place, then you have seen me. He says, for when your Lord now manifests himself to the mountain, you'll find that the Salaf said, if you look at the Athar, they said Allah manifests to the mountain of what we would understand as what? Something of the tip of a finger of what we will understand. And there's no resemblance. But to give us according to what? An understanding of what we will understand. And to Allah belongs the greatest of highest examples. He says that when Allah displayed that of himself subhanahu, he said the what? Mountain disintegrated. And Allah and Musa fell out unconscious, which was to prove to Musa what? Musa, in this dunya you will not see me because you're too weak physically. Your body can't stand it. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed Musa, this is the reason why you can't see me in this dunya. He said, then when Musa regained consciousness, he said what? فَلَمَّا أَفَاقَ قَالَ, he says, when he came back to regain his consciousness, he said, glory be to you, I make tawbah to you, and I'm the first of the Muslimin. Now this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Allah spoke to Musa again, another time. When did that happen? After you regained consciousness. You understand? It says, O Musa, verily I chose you over the people with my message and by hearing my speech, hearing my voice. Take what I've given you, be from amongst those who are thankful. the speech of Allah happened at a time. It didn't happen all at once, like the Mu'tazila said. The Mu'tazila say, no. That happened all at once. Absolute confusion. Any Muslim hears that happened all at once, they would be confused. How it happened all at once? When? Where? Happened all at once. What did they say? Fil azal. In the eternal dimension. The eternal dimension. What eternal dimension? What did they live for that? The eternal dimension of the qadr. Some other nonsense that they say, that they have no dalil for. And then you ask them, where is this eternal dimension? They can't bring any dalil for it. And then you ask them, is that mutawatir? Because that's aqidah. No answer. Is it clear, everyone? We'll stop here, inshallah. Something? Oh, خلاص, we need the class. Any questions about the lesson? Follow.
You mentioned something about when the day of judgment, when Musa would be
he'll be carrying one of the qawa'im al-arsh.
Carrying?
Comes in the authentic narrative in the Sahih. He said that the Messenger of Allah seen that Musa, when the Messenger of Allah regained consciousness on the day of resurrection, he said, I see Musa carrying the what? One of the legs of the throne of Allah Ta'ala. How? Allahu A'lam. But he said that he's seen it. That we formed through the revelation that Musa will be carrying one of the qawa'im al-arsh. Is it clear, everyone? Look in the hadith, I'll give it to you. The narration is authentic.
No, but at least from what I remember, I think it said holding on by that word enough carrying.
قوائم العرش ثق تماما. These affairs of Aqidah, alhamdulillah, by Allah's grace, we've been teaching this for years. Just go back to the hadith. We'll talk about it, inshallah. I'll show you the narration. It says, from my memory, what I understand, what I memorized, it says, وَهُوَ يَحْمِلُ قَوَائِمَ الْعَرْشِ أو إِحْدَى قَوَائِمَ الْعَرْشِ. Check it. Follow. Anything else? Follow.
You said something you said that Allah He exists, but he's not to the left, right, down. Is that like the same thing they used to say that Allah exists without a place?
Same thing.
Exact same thing.
Allah exists without a place is a statement of atheism. All these are statements of atheism. All of them. Allah not having certain characteristics. Allah having no characteristics. Allah having names with no meanings. All these are statements of atheism. All of it. All of it leads to either partial atheism or total atheism. The Jahmiyyah just led to total atheism. Then the Ash'ari is just partial atheism, but it's statements of atheism. It is confusing to the Muslims, and that's why when they hear these statements, they become confused. So you can imagine there are Muslims out there that carry ideologies of atheists, not realizing the depths and the magnitude of what they're saying. When they say Allah's not above, Allah's not above the arsh, Allah does not have no names and attributes, Allah doesn't. So describe to me something that doesn't exist. It's not above, it's not below, it's not to the right, it's not to the left. That's atheism. That's a statement of atheism. The Muslims don't realize what these statements, where they initially came from, the origin of where they came from, and not realizing the magnitude or the weight they contain of what these affairs are in reality. They're statements of atheism. And you'll find there are millions of Muslims that believe this. Millions. Not realizing that they came from Greek philosophers, the Muslims adopted it, and they believe it. And they will fight you up and down, arguing you. And such as what happened on 45th Street, they will argue with you up and down. Allah's not above. Like, where is he? I don't know, but he's not above. And then you'll find that some of them say, like we said, he's everywhere. Or some of them will say the statement you just said, he exists without a place. Or they'll say he's not to the right, he's not above, he's not below, he's not to the right, not to the left. That's a pure, exact depiction of something that does not exist at all. You used to ask me, tell me something that don't exist. It's not above, it's not below, it's not to the right, it's not to the left. Khalas, that's atheism. You're negating Allah's existence. He has no names, he has no attributes. That's non-existent. He has no names, he has no attributes, he's not up, he's not down, he doesn't ascend, it's nothing. You understand? So realize these affairs are affairs of atheism. That's the reason why we focus on teaching these books, because these affairs are very extremely dangerous. Because a Muslim can die in the state he has doubt concerning Allah. That is the most greatest of all atrocities. There is no atrocity worse than you having died in a state where you have doubt concerning Allah and having some deviation in regards to your Lord, subhanahu. Is it clear, everyone? Any other question? Tafadhal.
Two, inshallah. The second one is like twofold. So the first one, and you kept on reiterating it. Narrate it as it came without looking for the how it is. You said.
Mm-hmm.
You said this was the Salaf was.
That was their statement.
Yeah, you saying they were affirming. I forget it.
They were affirming the name, the characteristic, and the meaning, right, based upon that statement. Amirruha kama ja'at bila kayf. When you hear the statement such as narrate it as it came without looking for how it is, it's a clear indication that the Salaf or the Sahaba affirmed the name, the attribute, and the meaning. And if the position was them negating this, they would not have to say. They would not have to say the end part. Narrate it as it came without asking how it is, nor looking for how it is, if that was their position. But that wasn't their position. But based upon what they say, the people of innovations, what do they say? They say no. The position of the Salaf is just to entrust everything to Allah. Everything. I've heard this on my own ears from people who came to my masjid about 15 years ago, and they argue with me. The Ash'a'irah. A group of the Ash'aris came to me arguing with me. He said, we just make tafweed. He said it to me in my face. We just make tafweed of everything. They said we entrust all of it to Allah. The name, so basically you entrust the name, the characteristic, and what? And the meaning. This is what Shaykh al-Islam is refuting here. He's saying the statement of the Salaf is what? Narrated as it came without looking for how it is, nor what? Asking how it is. Which is a clear indication that they affirm what? The name, the attribute, and what? The meaning. And if that was their position, to negate it or entrust all of it to Allah, they would not say bila kayf. They would not say without looking for asking how it is. Because that's a clear proof that they affirm what? This has a meaning to it. But the how it is, we don't know it. But just merely saying that there's a meaning to it necessitates that they affirm there is a manner of how Allah's names and attributes are, but we don't know it. It's as if they're saying that that's what the Salaf knew. This is what they were implying in these statements. That we affirm the name, the meaning, and we're saying Allah has these characteristics in a manner of, it's done in a way, how it is, we affirm that. But we don't know it. Is it clear? It's fine.
You mentioned the scholars categorizing it's a fact of the law. You said that they, of course, it wasn't needed, but they did it at the time when Greek philosophy was widespread, and it was called kalam or what?
The ilm al-kalam.
Say it again, Tom?
The ilm al-kalam.
Ilm like knowledge.
Knowledge of rhetoric.
Knowledge of rhetoric. And the second part to that would be, I can see like some slippery people trying to make that and trying to say this is innovation. They try to fall into something like that afterwards. Saying them breaking that down is innovation or something? The
reason why they broke it down is because of that innovation. That innovation necessitated for the subject to come clarified.
Right, now.
What's the truth and the falsehood from these statements?
Right, so I'm saying like, so the people...
So people of falsehood, they're the ones that force the Salaf to now come up with these categories.
Right.
Otherwise, they weren't needed.
Right.
Because the Muslims all were upon what was correct.
Yeah.
When these confusions and all these different types of rhetoric and confusion and all these different ambiguities came, then they had to now come to categorize it in order to clarify that the Muslim was correct, was falsehood, and was correct.
So the people of innovation try to say that is innovation. I can see slippery people trying to do that. So
yeah, but you would say they say it's innovation, but that's not innovation. In actuality, the categorization. Salat didn't come in yet, did it?
No.
Salat's not in yet.
No, sir.
Oh. Huh? The affair of was pertaining to the categorization of these names and attributes came later, based upon the fact, like we said, they were forced in these positions based upon the fact that these confusing ideas were adopted, and the Muslims started becoming confused. The clear dalil, the evidence for that, they started making the most atrocious statements. Allah's not above. Was that the statement of the Sahaba? No. Allah don't have no names and attributes. Allah has a name but has no meaning to it. All this different nonsense. Like what? This was something that was never what introduced. The people of rhetoric came and started causing confusion. So now the Salaf had to come down with categories to clarify to the Muslims of how to categorize these characteristics. It was just for categorization, meaning it was just for clarification. That's all. All of these categories are all backed up by evidences and proofs. Their categorization is is what backs it up is their aql. What backs it up is their intellects. That's the difference. What backed their so-called depiction or affirmation or what they negated from Allah was based upon their rationality. Well, us coming in with these, when we categorize, was based upon evidence from Kitab and Sunnah. All categorization of what of the people, the truth, come with are all derived from Kitab and Sunnah. They just made for clarification purposes. That's it. So the evidences in Kitab and Sunnah are extracted through what? We said that the foundation of the Salaf is yastadillun thumma ya'taqidun. The people of falsehood is what? Ya'taqidun thumma yabhathun 'an al-adillah. The origin of our religion is we look for the evidences, then we believe, based upon the evidences. Their idea of what? Come with ideologies and ideas and beliefs, then look for so-called evidences that agree with it. And then you'll find in actuality the evidences are against what they believe. But that's from their methodology. They come with ideologies, then they try to look for evidences to back it up. And in reality, they have no evidence other than their mere rationality. That's it. Because they glorify their mind. That's an origin of what? Greek philosophy. To make that mind as a what? Or origin is a philosophy from Greek philosophers. Greek philosophers, a lot of them were pagans. And a lot of them were pagans and people of idolatry. A lot of them. Some of them had Greek gods, and some of them went to another atrocity, which was what? Glorification of a god called the intellect. Is it clear, everyone? Their god was called the intellect, and it was a Tawhut. They would branch off of that for other atrocities such as Majaz, which is all other nonsense. Brothers are always making their classes longer than what we should be. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. ذكرني أنني أحتاج إلى أتوضأ يلزمني الوضوء ذكرني. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. محمد رسول الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود الذي وعدته. So that's basically to sum it up. all the different types of categories that you'll find, for example, category of rububiyyah wa uluhiyyah wal asma wa sifat. The origin of that is the evidences. Then the scholars, the correct scholars of our religion, extracted from those evidences categories. So the origin of it is Kitab and Sunnah. The people of falsehood is the opposite. The people of falsehood, they come with ideas and ideologies for يَعْتَقِدُونَ ثُمَّ يَسْتَدِلُونَ. They believe and have convictions, then they look for evidences. That's not from our religion. It's not from our way. We look for the evidences and proofs, the concrete, authentic evidences and proofs, and we build our belief based upon it, not the opposite. Is it clear? The people of falsehood, they what? They come with the ideas and the beliefs, then they try to look for evidences to support it. Even if it's their minds, or their intellects, or their emotions. And they build their beliefs based upon it. And that's absolute what? Falsehood. Is it clear? That's absolute what? Falsehood. That's the fariq. That's the al-faisal, al-hakim, al-qadiyya, between us and the people of falsehood. We build our beliefs based upon authentic evidences, proofs, and facts. The people on the other side, they built their beliefs and ideologies upon their opinions, their whims, their desires, and emotions. That's what distinguishes us between what's correct and what's what? Incorrect. Is it clear? Anything else? We'll continue tomorrow with the second category, which is what? الصفات الخبرية العقلية معا. We'll talk about that tomorrow. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.